The fluorescent lights hummed, a lonely sound in the empty office. But I wasn't alone. He was there always. And every night, as the clock ticked past midnight, I felt a different kind of hum, a dangerous current pulling me closer to the man sitting across from me, the man my husband thought was just my boss. My name is Ella, and if you're reading this, you know my secret. My husband, bless his trusting heart, thought I was just a diligent employee, burning the midnight oil to prove myself in my new role. He'd kiss my forehead, whisper, "Proud of you, babe," and drift off to sleep oblivious. He had no idea I was burning for something else entirely, something forbidden, thrilling, and utterly catastrophic. It started subtly, as most fires do. My new job was demanding, a steep learning curve, and the only way to keep my head above water was to stay late. Liam, my team leader, stayed late too. Always. "Just making sure you're settled, Ella," he'd say, his voice a low rumble that always seemed to find a way to vibrate right through me. He was in his late 30s, sharp, confident, and possessed a quiet intensity that was both intimidating and incredibly alluring. Welcome back to Love and Secret Stories. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe and drop a comment letting me know where you're listening from. I love seeing our community from all over the world. He had a wedding band on his finger, a gleaming circle of gold that in the early days was a constant, stark reminder of the boundaries between us. But boundaries, I was learning, were just lines drawn in the sand, easily washed away by the tide of shared vulnerability and late-night solitude. The office, usually a bustling hub of activity, transformed after 6. The clatter of keyboards faded. The phone calls ceased, and a profound quiet descended, broken only by the hum of the air conditioning and the soft rustle of our papers. In that silence, we became more than colleagues. We became conspirators. We'd order takeout, sharing stories over lukewarm coffee as the city lights twinkled outside the window. He'd talk about his projects. I'd talk about my frustrations. And slowly, gently, the walls around us began to crumble. I found myself looking forward to those quiet hours. The way his eyes would crinkle at the corners when he smiled, the subtle scent of his cologne, a warm, musky cedar that seemed to cling to me long after I'd left the office. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. One Tuesday night, a particularly brutal deadline loomed. Everyone else had packed up and left by 8, but Liam and I were still hunched over our screens, the only two souls left on the entire floor. My shoulders ached, my eyes burned, and my usually composed demeanor was fraying at the edges. I let out a frustrated sigh, running a hand through my hair. Liam looked up from his monitor, his gaze softening. "Rough one, ha," he murmured, his voice laced with genuine sympathy. He stood stretching, and I found my eyes drawn to the way his shirt pulled taut across his chest, the defined lines of his body. A flush crept up my neck, hot and sudden. I quickly averted my gaze, pretending to focus on my screen. He walked over to my desk, leaning against its edge, his presence suddenly overwhelming in the quiet space. "Take a break," he suggested gently. "Let's grab another coffee." My treat. As we walked to the break room, the silence between us was different that night. It wasn't comfortable, it was charged. My skin tingled, acutely aware of his proximity. In the break room. As he poured the coffee, his hand brushed mine, reaching for the sugar, a jolt, electric and immediate shot through me. My breath hitched. He looked at me, his eyes dark, unreadable, and for a split second the world narrowed to just us, our hands, the heat radiating between them. Back at my desk, the air was thick with unspoken words. We worked in silence for another hour, but my concentration was shattered. Every rustle of his clothes, every shift in his chair, sent a tremor through me. I felt my nipples harden beneath my thin blouse, a humiliating, undeniable response to his mere presence. I pressed my arms against my chest, trying to hide the obvious proof of my racing heart, praying he wouldn't notice. But I could feel his gaze on me. Quick, intense. Before he'd look away, he knew. Finally, at past midnight, Liam declared, "That's enough for tonight, Ella. We'll pick this up tomorrow." I nodded, gathering my things, my hands trembling slightly. He walked me to the elevator, the long hallway stretching out before us, bathed in the dim emergency lighting. The usual office chatter was gone, replaced by the echo of our footsteps. Felt like we were the last two people on Earth. At the elevator doors, I turned to him, ready to say goodnight. But he didn't move, he just stood there watching me, his eyes intense. The air crackled, my heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drum beat against the silence. "You're doing great, Ella," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper. He reached out, his fingers gently brushing a stray strand of hair from my cheek. The touch was feather light, yet it ignited a wildfire within me. My entire body surged with a heat that was dizzying. My eyes met his wide and pleading. I couldn't speak. I didn't know what to say. The line between professional and personal had not just blurred, it had completely vanished. His gaze dropped to my lips, then back to my eyes, a silent question hanging in the air. And then he leaned in slowly, deliberately. I didn't pull away. I leaned in too, my lips parting just slightly in anticipation. His mouth met mine, soft at first, a tentative exploration. Then with an unexpected urgency that stole my breath. It was a kiss that tasted of forbidden desire of stale coffee and of the dangerous thrill of breaking every rule. My hands instinctively found their way to his chest, gripping the fabric of his shirt as the world spun. His lips moved expertly over mine, demanding, tender, and utterly consuming. When he finally pulled back just an inch, his forehead resting against mine, I was breathless. My vision swam. "Ella," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. "Liam," I managed, my voice barely a squeak. He kissed me again, deeper this time, his tongue finally meeting mine, a wet, intimate dance that sent shivers through my entire body. I could feel the heat emanating from him, the solid strength of his body pressed against mine. My core ached, a deep throbbing ache that demanded more. He pulled away abruptly, his eyes glittering in the dim light. "We shouldn't," he murmured, but his gaze was still fixed on my lips, my flushed face. "I know," I breathed, even as my body screamed for him to ignore the words. He didn't miss a beat. His hand slipped to my waist, pulling me tighter against him until there was no space left between us. I could feel the hard ridge of his desire pressing against my stomach. A shocking, electrifying sensation that made my knees weak. My own body responded immediately, a wet warmth spreading between my thighs. "Are you sure?" he whispered, his thumb caressing my hip bone, sending waves of pleasure through me. Quick reminder, subscribe to Love and Secret Stories so you never miss the next twist. I looked into his eyes, lost in the depths of them. Guilt, betrayal, fear. They were all there, a fleeting shadow, but they were quickly eclipsed by a burning, unyielding lust. I nodded my answer, raw and honest. Yes, he didn't need any more encouragement. He took my hand, his grip firm, and led me away from the elevator, back down the deserted hallway towards his office. It was a silent, urgent procession, each step pulling me deeper into the intoxicating vortex of forbidden desire. His office was larger, more private. The blinds were always drawn. He closed the door behind, thus with a soft click, plunging us into a deeper intimacy. He turned to me, his gaze sweeping over my body, a hungry, possessive look that made me tremble. "You have no idea how long I've wanted to do this," he murmured, his voice husky. He reached for me, his hands going to the buttons of my blouse. My breath hitched. I stood still, letting him, my eyes locked on his. The buttons came undone one by one, revealing the lace of my bra, the swell of my breasts. My nipples, already hard, peeked through the delicate fabric. He watched them intently, his gaze hot and consuming, making me feel utterly exposed, utterly desired. When the blouse fell open, he slid it off my shoulders, letting it drop to the floor. He then cupped my face, his thumbs caressing my cheekbones, tilting my head back. He kissed me again slowly, deeply, as his other hand went to the clasp of my bra. With a soft click, it came undone, and my breasts spilled free, full and aching for his touch. His eyes devoured them. "Beautiful," he whispered, his voice thick with desire. He lowered his head, his warm mouth closing over one of my nipples, suckling gently. A gasp escaped my lips, a sound of pure, unadulterated pleasure. My body arched into him, my hands finding his hair, holding him closer. He tugged, gently teasing, sending waves of exquisite sensation through me down to my core. His mouth moved to my other breast, lavishing it with the same fervent attention, his skilled tongue making me dizzy with longing. My legs felt like jelly, and I leaned into him, letting him support my weight. He lifted his head, his eyes blazing, and then with a swift movement, he bent down, hooking his arms under my knees, lifting me into his arms. I gasped, clinging to him as he carried me to his large desk. He laid me down gently on the cool surface, pushing aside papers and files. The desk felt cold against my bare skin, a stark contrast to the burning heat his body was igniting within me. He stood over me, his eyes never leaving mine as he unbuckled his belt. My gaze was fixed on his hands, then on the growing bulge beneath his trousers. A thrill, dark and delicious, coursed through me. I felt a rush of shame of knowing I was betraying everything I held dear, but it was drowned out by the fierce, intoxicating roar of my desire. He shed his clothes quickly, his eyes never leaving mine, making me feel as if I were already naked before him, exposed and vulnerable. When he stood completely bare before me, I could finally see the full glory of his aroused rod, thick and impressive, pulsing with eagerness. My breath caught in my throat. It was magnificent. The sheer size of it, the way it stood so rigid, made my insides clench with an intense craving. He climbed onto the desk between my spread legs, his hard body pressing against my softness. My dress was still bunched around my waist, and he made quick work of pushing it up, then sliding down my panties. They joined my blouse and bra on the floor, leaving me fully exposed to his hungry gaze. He reached down, his fingers finding my wetness, stroking the sensitive folds. My head fell back, a soft moan escaping my lips. His touch was firm, knowing, teasing the clitoris, then dipping a finger inside me, exploring my slick entrance. I was ready, more than ready. My body was screaming for him. "You're so wet," he whispered, his voice dark with desire, so ready for me. He parted my slick petals with his fingers, revealing my core, and then slowly, deliberately, he guided his rod to my entrance. The tip pressed against me, warm and insistent. My breath hitched. I wrapped my legs around his waist, pulling him closer, desperate to feel him inside me. He plunged in slowly at first, filling me completely. A gasp tore from my throat, a mix of pain and exquisite pleasure. He was bigger than I expected, stretching me, but the sensation was so profound, so utterly consuming that I welcomed it. He paused, letting me adjust, our eyes locked in a silent conversation of raw primal need. Then he started to move. Slow, deep thrusts that sent shock waves through my entire being. The rhythmic friction, the feeling of his rod filling me over and over was utterly intoxicating. My hips rose to meet his instinct taking over. Our bodies slammed together, skin on skin, the sounds of our gasps and the slap of flesh echoing in the empty office. This wasn't gentle lovemaking. This was raw, untamed lust. It was primal, almost degrading in its intensity. A furious claiming of bodies that left no room for tenderness, only urgent, desperate relief. I felt stripped bare, not just of my clothes, but of my inhibitions, my carefully constructed facade. I was just pure, unadulterated desire, consumed by the burning need to feel him, to have him. His thrusts grew faster, harder, more insistent. I wrapped my legs tighter around him, my nails digging into his back. My vision blurred, my climax building, a searing pressure deep inside me. He whispered urgent guttural sounds against my neck, his body trembling with the effort. "Look at me, Ella," he gasped, his eyes wild. "Look at what you do to me." I opened my eyes, meeting his intense gaze. And in that moment, as his rod hammered into me, I felt a deep, powerful shudder begin to build. It started in my core, radiating outwards, engulfing my entire body in a wave of pure, shattering pleasure. My hips bucked, my back arched, and a choked cry tore from my throat as I fractured, breaking apart in a million exquisite pieces. He followed moments later, his body tensing, his own fierce groan echoing mine as his hot milk surged deep inside me, filling me with his essence. It was a potent, overwhelming sensation, the proof of our transgression, hot and undeniable. We lay there entwined, our bodies slick with sweat, our breath ragged. The silence that followed was heavy, charged with the aftershocks of our furious coupling. My body ached, but it was a sweet, satisfying ache. As he pulled out, I felt a pang of longing, already missing the heavy fullness of him. He lay beside me on the cold desk, pulling me close, stroking my hair. The raw intensity had faded, replaced by a strange, quiet intimacy. "Ella," he murmured, kissing my forehead. What have we done? I didn't answer. I just buried my face in his neck, inhaling his scent, clinging to the warmth of his body. The guilt was a dull throb beneath the surface, but for now it was overshadowed by the exhilarating rush of what had just happened, the addictive taste of the forbidden. From that night, the late hours in the office ceased to be about work. They became our secret world, a clandestine haven where our lust could run wild. My excuses to my husband became smoother, more convincing. Each night as I packed my bag, I felt a thrilling anticipation coiled in my gut, a mixture of shame and desperate craving. The sex became crazier, more adventurous. We explored every surface of his private office, the conference room, even the filing cabinets. His eyes would devour me as I stood naked before him, letting him drink in every curve, every dip. He'd watch me, making me feel utterly exposed, utterly his. Sometimes he'd have me stand, bending me over the desk, taking me from behind, his rod pushing deep, hitting a spot that made me writhe with pleasure. Other times he'd sit me on his lap, my legs wrapped around his waist, his fingers tracing patterns on my skin as we moved together, the contact exquisitely intimate. He'd make me look at him, make me acknowledge every thrust, every moan, making me feel completely consumed by his desire, a willing participant in my own degradation. There were moments in the afterglow when the raw lust would soften into something more tender. He'd hold me close, stroking my hair, whispering things that blurred the lines even further. "You're incredible, Ella," he'd say, his voice raw with emotion. "You make me feel things I haven't felt in years." In those stolen moments wrapped in his arms, feeling his heartbeat against mine, a dangerous affection began to bloom amidst the horniness and betrayal. It wasn't just physical anymore. A deeper, more complicated bond was forming, built on shared secrets and illicit pleasure, a passionate, tender intimacy born in the shadows of deceit. Leaving him each morning, the thought of returning to my normal life with my unsuspecting husband felt like stepping into a different dimension. The contrast was jarring. I was a different woman now, marked by the powerful primal connection I shared with Liam. I was caught suspended between admiration for him, the secrecy of our affair, the insatiable horniness that consumed me, and the crushing weight of my betrayal. The office, once just a place of work, had become the crucible of my deepest desires and my darkest secrets. And as I walked out into the dawn, the city waking up around me, I knew I was irrevocably changed. The dangerous current was still pulling me deeper and deeper, and I had no idea where it would take me. But I knew with a terrifying certainty that I couldn't stop. I didn't want to.